Good morning, John. Let me bring you up to date on where the president's schedule is and what we're hearing from White House officials. The president is getting a very detailed briefing this morning, as he does every day, on intelligence matters, which will, of course, include a damage assessment from this initial strike that began this war in Iraq. George Tenet, head of the CIA, seen arriving at the White House earlier this morning. In fact, the president was given his first briefing at 6 a.m. Eastern Time by his national security advisor, Condoleezza Rice, getting his first assessment of overnight developments. Now, world reaction has been coming in fast and furious. The White House noting this, officials saying this morning that while the president respects views of other leaders who will be critical of this operation, they also point out there are many around the world who will welcome the initial phases of disarming Iraq, and the president will remain undeterred and will continue to move forward. White House officials, as you've been reporting this morning, have not reached any conclusions about the status of Saddam Hussein even after this initial strike. They have not reached conclusions about whether it is he who appears in that videotape. It is apparently Saddam Hussein, but intelligence officials are investigating whether, in fact, it could be a body double. They are trying to verify the accuracy of that tape. So the president will continue to make phone calls to world leaders today, as he began yesterday. The key point is that the president, within 4 hours of ordering this strike, spoke to the nation and prepared the country for the prospect of a longer and a more difficult military campaign than was originally expected. John?
It sounds like quite a dramatic scene yesterday, and I don't want to overstate it, but the CIA director coming into the president and saying, look, we've got this information, this target of opportunity. What else do we know about how all that came together?
Well, we know that as of yesterday, the president's mind had been made up. He had ordered war. It was now in the hands of the generals as to when. The War Council, including the Vice President, the Secretary of State Powell, Condoleezza Rice, the National Security Advisor, George Tenet, a director of the CIA, and others were meeting, in effect, a War Council twice a day. Well, yesterday afternoon, just before 4 p.m. Eastern Time, there was an unusual third meeting. That meeting went almost 3 hours long, as the latest battle plans were assessed, the latest intelligence was assessed, and approximately 6:30 p.m., the president, hearing the recommendations from his generals, authorized the strike that we all viewed, that the president called the beginning of what would be a broad and a concerted military campaign. It caught a lot of people by surprise, even within the White House, that this first surgical strike would be what actually started the war in Iraq. But nevertheless, that's how that unfolded. The president concluded that meeting about 20 minutes after 4 o'clock. Later on in the evening, he was actually having dinner with the First Lady in the residence. That was at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the official deadline for Saddam to get out of Iraq. His chief of staff, Andrew Card, informed him that apparently the Iraqi leader was staying put in Baghdad. And then just a little less than 2 hours later, there were the first signs of bombs over Baghdad, and the military campaign was underway. The president speaking at 10:15 Eastern Time from the Oval Office.
Quickly, David, kind of a personal thing. Before you go, how's this day and last night different from other intense days at the White House?
Well, in a lot of ways, they're very much like other intense days at the White House. This was carried off with the kind of precision and planning that we customarily see out of this White House. A good deal of discipline and a good deal of surprise was achieved just as the president wanted. I think it also underscores that even as there is a massive military operation in the planning stages, which has been, of course, for months, there was an opportunity to decapitate the Iraqi leadership, and this president went for it. And obviously now there are assessments as to how all of that came out.
Yeah, we still don't know yet. David Gregory at the White House. David, thanks very much. We'll talk to you a little later.
Okay.
Now here's Chris.